Oh, really? Oh, really? You about to talk crazy and take shots at Adam Silver? Yeah, Adam, it's time to put your foot down. Start banning some of these chicks. Kathy and Adam, start banning some of these chicks. What we talking about here? Nneka Ogwumike, you about to fire off shots? You taking shots at Adam Silver? This is...
When the president of your players' union starts firing shots at the NBA commissioner who signs the checks, you know negotiations have gone completely sideways. Nneka Ogwumike just did exactly that, publicly calling out Adam Silver for his comments about the WNBA's CBA negotiations, and the way she did it reveals just how far apart these two sides really are.
Look at this. She went on a podcast with Jemele Hill. Pardon me, I forget the other young lady's name. Pardon me, ma'am. Pardon me, ma'am. But shout out to y'all. This is an article courtesy of High Post Hoops, where it says Nneka Ogwumike, and you can listen to it on the full podcast. Actually, I don't want to be that guy. I do want to plug it. Flagrant and funny, okay? It was an episode with Kerry Champion and Jemele Hill, okay?
Here's what triggered this. During NBA All-Star Weekend in February 2025, Adam Silver told reporters that WNBA negotiations needed to move to the next level of sense of urgency. He said everyone needs to stop playing games because they're in the 11th hour. Standard commissioner talk, right? Except Nneka Ogwumike heard that completely differently. She went on the Unbothered podcast with Jemele Hill and Kerry Champion, and she made it crystal clear the players aren't the ones dragging their feet here.
Here it says, when she appeared on Flagrant and Funny with Kerry Champion and Jemele Hill, shout out to y'all, Ogwumike said, I actually was a little bit confused when Adam Silver said that, because as players, we have certainly had a sense of urgency, so much so that we've moved a substantial amount on this portion of the agreement that we know is going to allow everything else to fall in place. That portion is in revenue shares. The league, on the other hand, hasn't operated in the same sense of urgency, according to...
Let's talk about what's actually on the table, because the numbers tell a very different story than Silver's comments suggest. The WNBA Players Association opened negotiations asking for 40% of league revenue. Now, before you react to that number, understand the context. NBA players get 50%. The previous WNBA agreement had players receiving roughly 12 to 13%. So 40% was aggressive, sure, but it wasn't pulled out of thin air. But here's where Ogwumike's frustration becomes legitimate. According to her interview, the players have moved significantly from that 40% opening position. By December 2024, they'd come down to approximately 28%. That's a 12-point reduction. They gave up nearly a third of their initial ask.
Move little. So, wait, y'all started at 40. Yeah, y'all done lost y'all mind. Lock their asses out then if they want to play like that. Like, I want to see Caitlin Clark hoop, but if y'all going to be talking nonsense, lock their asses out. Let's move on with the players on rookie contracts. Let's draft rookies. Let's move on with some replacement players, man. Like, hey, Adam, y'all need to start banning people. When they talk crazy, when they get up there and talk too crazy, y'all need to lay y'all foot down. Like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. Here it says, over time, we've come down to the...
Now look at the league's movement. Their first proposal had players at less than 13%, barely above the expiring deal. After 6 weeks of silence following the players' December proposal, the league finally responded in late February with a counteroffer of 14.5%, not even 15. So the players dropped 12 points, and the league moved 1.5 points. And Adam Silver wants to talk about urgency? This is why Ogwumike's response hit so hard. She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the players have absolutely been operating with urgency, moving substantially on revenue share to make everything else fall into place. But the league hasn't matched that energy. 6 weeks of radio silence, then a counteroffer that barely budges, doesn't exactly scream sense of urgency.
It's not even at 15, so to come back 6 weeks later and that's still where they're at doesn't demonstrate a sense of urgency from them. It says a strike is still on the table. The players still have the option to strike, which would be a first in the league history. But Ogwumike reiterated, players want to play the 2026 season. It's in everybody's best interest. Having a 2026 season is the best way to build on the momentum the league has gained over the last few seasons. And for players to continue to build their brands, while there are many other options for players now, the WNBA is the most established league and that carries weight with brands that want to pay.
The timing of all this matters more than you might think. The 2025 season is scheduled to start in May. That's not a lot of runway when you consider everything that needs to happen before opening tip. The Golden State Valkyries expansion draft has to take place. Free agency needs to open. The college draft needs to be scheduled and executed. Rosters need to be finalized. Training camps need to start, and none of that can happen without a CBA in place. If these negotiations drag into April without resolution, you're looking at either a massively compressed offseason or the very real possibility of games being delayed or canceled. The players have authorized a strike, which would be the first in WNBA history. Nobody wants that outcome, but the threat is real enough that it's forcing everyone to consider the unthinkable.
Stop playing games. Let's just stop. Let's just stop. A recent in-person meeting in New York at least prompted the league to finally respond to the WNBPA's proposal from December. Ogwumike also said that the players would send their responses to the league's latest proposal soon. So at least there is some movement in negotiations, but time is ticking. The season is scheduled to start in May, which doesn't leave much time for the expansion draft, free agency, and the college draft. Time is definitely ticking, but my whole thing is Nneka taking shots at Adam Silver. You bold. That's bold.
Here's what makes this situation particularly volatile. The WNBA just came off its most successful season in league history, driven almost entirely by the Caitlin Clark effect. Television ratings exploded. The Indiana Fever went from playing in mostly empty arenas to selling out every game. Merchandise sales skyrocketed. Corporate sponsorships flooded in. Charter flights became standard instead of a luxury. The league expanded from 12 to 13 teams with Golden State, and there are serious discussions about adding more franchises. This is the moment when the players have the most leverage they've ever had. The league is hot. The momentum is undeniable. Brands want in. Networks are paying attention. And the players know this window might not stay open forever. So when they hear Adam Silver talking about urgency while the league takes 6 weeks to move 1.5 percentage points, it reads like a negotiating tactic rather than genuine concern.
On the first flight to Mexico, that girl in Guangdong, Hong Kong, Wangfong, Mifong, China somewhere right now. Y'all ain't play no games with her. Stop playing games with these Tasha Clouds. Want to keep talking crazy? Send her ass to Moy Bing over there in Switzerland somewhere. I don't give a damn. Send her over there. Nneka Ogwumike, go wherever you want. You ain't gonna be here. That's what I do. Send them elsewhere. Ship them on out. Ship them on out. Listen, y'all not going to lose no TV ratings because Natasha Cloud's not playing. Trust and believe. Y'all not.
But there's another layer to this that Ogwumike touched on in her interview. She talked about not wanting to fail the generations of players who dealt with terrible conditions to get the league where it is today, and not wanting to fail future generations waiting for their chance. That's the pressure these negotiators are under. They're not just bargaining for themselves. They're bargaining for Lisa Leslie and Cheryl Swoops, who played in the league's early years when salaries were embarrassingly low and nobody cared. And they're bargaining for the high school players right now who dream of going pro but might not have a league to play in if this goes wrong. That historical context makes every percentage point feel like a referendum on whether women's professional basketball will ever be valued properly. It's not just about money, it's about respect, recognition, and whether the people running the league actually believe in its future.
You can't be going for this. Ain't no Nneka. I'm Adam Silver. I'm Adam Silver. Ain't no Nneka Ogwumike about to be talking crazy with me. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Like you done turned over a profit in this league? Like you have brought all the eyeballs to this league? No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Let her go play in Nigeria. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think, man. Let's keep the vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share.
The elephant in the room that nobody wants to address directly is profitability. The WNBA has historically operated at a loss, subsidized by the NBA. That's been the reality since the league's founding in 1996. But the 2024 season changed the conversation, with Caitlin Clark driving unprecedented viewership and attendance, with corporate sponsors lining up, with expansion fees bringing in new revenue streams. The financial picture looks different than it did even 2 years ago. The players are essentially saying, "We just proved we can draw eyeballs and sell tickets. We just demonstrated that this league can be commercially viable. Now pay us accordingly." The league's response appears to be, "Let's see if this momentum sustains before we commit to a dramatically different economic model." That's the fundamental tension here. So here's what makes this significant. Nneka Ogwumike didn't just disagree with Adam Silver. She publicly contradicted him, with specifics, on a podcast that reaches exactly the audience that follows these negotiations closely. That's not an accident. That's a calculated move to shift the narrative. Silver tried to frame this as everyone needing to get serious. Ogwumike reframed it as the league refusing to match the players' flexibility. And the really interesting part, she's not wrong on the facts. The players did move from 40% to 28%. The league did take 6 weeks to respond. The counteroffer was 14.5%, not 15%. Those aren't disputed. So when she says the league hasn't demonstrated urgency, she's backing it up with a timeline and numbers that tell a very specific story. This is high-stakes public negotiating. Both sides know that public perception matters. If fans believe the players are being greedy and unreasonable, that weakens their position. If fans believe the league is lowballing the players right after a breakthrough season, that strengthens the union's hand. Ogwumike just made a move to control that narrative. But here's the complication. While Ogwumike is technically correct about the negotiating positions, there's a broader context that makes this messy. The WNBA's revenue, even with the Caitlin Clark bump, is still a fraction of the NBA's. The league brought in an estimated $200 million in revenue in 2024. That sounds impressive until you realize the NBA generates $10 billion. The scale is just completely different. So when the players ask for 28% of revenue, that might sound reasonable compared to the NBA's 50% split. But the actual dollar amounts are still relatively modest, and the league's financial sustainability without NBA subsidies remains an open question. The league's position is probably something like, we can't commit to a revenue share that might bankrupt us if the Caitlin Clark bump doesn't sustain, or if we hit an economic downturn. The players' counter to that would be, you've been using the we're not profitable excuse for 29 years. At some point, you have to invest in the product, and trust that it will pay off. You can't keep women's basketball in a perpetual state of proving itself, while men's basketball gets every benefit of the doubt. And that's where this gets really uncomfortable, because there's truth on both sides. The league does need to be financially responsible, but the players also have a point that the league's conservative approach has kept salaries artificially low for decades, even as the NBA's revenue has exploded and could easily absorb higher WNBA costs. Think about the position this puts Caitlin Clark in, by the way. She's the reason this negotiation is happening now, instead of in a year or two. Her presence drove the ratings that gave the players leverage. But she's not at the table. She's not part of the union yet because she was still in college when this started. So the deal that gets made will directly affect her earning potential, but she has no say in it. If the players hold firm and there's a work stoppage, she loses her rookie season. If the players cave and accept a weak deal, she's locked into it for the next several years. The same goes for Paige Buchers, who's expected to be the #1 pick in 2026 if she declares, and Juju Watkins at USC, and all the other college stars who are about to turn pro. Their futures are being decided right now by negotiations they're not part of. That's just how union bargaining works, but it adds another layer of pressure. Here's the thing about beat reporters and league officials in these situations. They have to maintain relationships. Adam Silver can't burn bridges with the players' union because he needs them to agree to a deal eventually. Nneka Ogwumike can't completely alienate the commissioner because she needs him to move from 14.5% to something closer to what the players want. So even when they're publicly disagreeing, there's a dance happening. They're negotiating through the media, trying to pressure each other without completely destroying the working relationship. But Ogwumike's comments were pointed enough that they crossed a line. She basically said Silver was wrong about who's showing urgency. That's not subtle. That's a direct challenge, and it suggests the negotiations might be more contentious than either side has publicly acknowledged. When union leaders start contradicting commissioners in interviews, it usually means private talks aren't going well. What makes this particularly awkward is that Silver has been generally supportive of the WNBA throughout his tenure as NBA commissioner. He's the one who pushed for charter flights. He's championed expansion. He's talked up the league's potential in media appearances. So for the players' union president to call him out specifically is a sign of real frustration. She's not attacking some faceless entity. She's attacking by name the person who's supposed to be the league's biggest advocate. This dynamic is going to continue getting more uncomfortable as we get closer to May. Every week without a deal increases the pressure. The players don't want to strike, but they also don't want to accept a deal they consider insulting. The league doesn't want to lose games, but they also don't want to commit to a revenue share they think is financially irresponsible. And both sides are watching the calendar, knowing that every day that passes makes the situation more desperate. So the question becomes, was Nneka Ogwumike right to call out Adam Silver publicly? From a pure negotiating standpoint, probably yes. She shifted the narrative, put pressure on the league, and demonstrated that the players won't just accept whatever offer comes their way. But from a relationship standpoint, it's risky. You can only publicly contradict the commissioner so many times before it becomes personal. And once it's personal, deals get harder to make. The next few weeks will tell us whether this was a smart tactical move or whether it poisoned the well. If the league comes back with a significantly better offer, Ogwumike looks like a strong leader who stood up for her members. If negotiations stall and we head toward a work stoppage, people will look back at this moment as when things went off the rails. Either way, we just witnessed one of the most direct public confrontations between WNBA players and league management in the history of the league. And that alone tells you how high the stakes are right now. What do you think? Is Nneka Ogwumike right that the league isn't showing urgency, or are the players asking for more than the WNBA can realistically afford? Drop your take in the comments and make sure you're subscribed because this situation is going to develop fast over the next few weeks.